Hi. Every innovation originates from a dream. In fact, scientists are dreamers who can fulfill the ideas in an artistic way. I am so delighted to announce that Universal Council of Ophthalmology, UCO, in conjunction with International Society of Refractive Surgery, ISRS, and Iranian Association for Vision and Ophthalmology, IRAVO, will host 5 top artist scientists at the Look at the Future 3 IOLs in Evolution, the third UCO-ISRS joint meeting. They will share with us their dreams which came true. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me invite you to a pleasant episode of Look at the Future. See you soon.
I am Renato Ambrosió Jr from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. It's a pleasure to invite all of you for the webinar Look in the Future, organized by the Universal Council of Ophthalmology and the ISRS, the International Society of Refractive Surgery. The topic is a very important one, which is refractive cataract surgery, looking in the future towards the understanding of when and how to do cataract surgery, focusing on the new aspects of diagnosis and IOLs. See you soon.
Hello dear colleagues, this is Dr. Pablo Artal from Iranian Association for Ophthalmology and Vision Research, IRAVO. I'm happy to announce that IRAVO is hosting a great virtual conference on IOL in Evolution conducted by Dr. Soheil Adib-Moghaddam and Dr. Mojdeh Mohseni on 7th of December 2021 from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Indeed, we will see great stars and great frontiers in the field presenting and sharing their knowledge and experience in IOL. I would like to invite all of you to join this interesting webinar. See you.
Hello, my name is Jorge L, and I want just to introduce you to what is going to be my presentation on comparative IOLs. This very interesting session has been organized by the Universal Council of Ophthalmology. I want to thank Dr. Soheil Adib-Moghaddam for inviting me to this interesting session in which other speakers will talk about different issues very important about the future of intraocular lenses. My presentation will deal about accommodative lenses. I will explain to you why accommodative lenses should be placed in the sulcus, why accommodative lenses are prone to fail when implanted inside the capsular bag, which explains the previous failures that have happened in previously tentative accommodative IOLs, and finally which are the outcomes of the first accommodative IOLs that have published evidence of efficacy, proven evidence of safety, and I will show to you the results of the phase 3 clinical study in which a demonstration that this accommodative lens is working are provided. The quality of radial image of these lenses is better than the ones for multifocal and indoor lenses, and all this evidence will be in my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and again, the Universal Council of Ophthalmology and looks to the future for this kind invitation. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Pablo Artal, and I'm a professor of optics at the University of Murcia in Spain. I'm really very happy to be participating in the next Look at the Future 3 meeting, IOLs in Evolution, that is organized by the Universal Council of Ophthalmology. In the meeting, I will be lecturing about a new type of intraocular lens that we have invented, ART IOL. These lenses have a very unique shape, inverted meniscus, that copy the optical properties of our natural lens, improving the quality of vision in the periphery. This can be very significantly important for patients, improving their ability to walk around, driving, and the quality of life. Please join us for this meeting to learn more about the future of intraocular lenses.
I am Harilaos Ginis, and I'm inviting you to join the third edition of the Look at the Future webinar titled IOLs in Evolution. The webinar is organized by UCO-ISRS and IRAVO. We will be discussing the future of intraocular lenses. My talk will be focusing on the often neglected topic of peripheral vision in pseudophakic eyes, including various endoptic phenomena such as glare and the dysphotopsias. I will also propose some methods on how these phenomena can be improved and how image quality in the patients will be also improved. Join us on December the 17th.
Universal Council of Ophthalmology with International Society of Refractive Surgery and IRAVO are inviting for a very nice seminar, Look at Future 3 IOLs in Evolution. I would like to invite for my presentation IOLs laser micromachining, which will conclude the newest methods of manufacturing of the IOLs with using the laser micromachining. Also, this presentation will focus on customized intraocular lenses and the laser micromachining of customized intraocular lenses as the only one way to produce the future of intraocular lenses. Thank you very much.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, Soheil, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Hello, good afternoon. Nice to meet you. Harry, I know that you are so busy and you know you are in Spain. Thank you for joining us.
No problem. I think we can proceed with the presentations, right?
Yes, but if you let me, I want to read something. I mean, to tell you something to the audience. Yeah, please be around. Welcome to the Look at the Future 3, which is dedicated to the IOL technology. I would like to inform you that this is the third Universal Council of Ophthalmology, UCO-ISRS joint meeting, and in this program, IRAVO would be the other partner. Today, we will host top artist scientists who will share with us their new inspirational innovations, novel works, and ideas. Before entering the program, I want to ask attendees to stay tuned until the end of the program. After talks, we will have time for Q&A and panel discussion. At the end, you will be requested to answer the questions to help us better organize the next programs. Okay, I think that's it's time to start with the presentations. The first speaker is Dr. Renato Ambrosió Jr. And the topic is multimodal refractive imaging for cataract lens dysfunctions and for refractive cataract surgery. We are ready.
Hello, I am Renato Ambrosió Jr. from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I thank Dr. Soheil for the very nice invitation to participate in this meeting. I basically start also with an invitation for the International Society of Refractive Surgery, which is a leading network for cataract and refractive surgeons around the world. We have many tools for sharing information, from learning from each other, and subscription of the Journal of Refractive Surgery is really worth the value of the ISRS, and we have thousands of video presentations in our website. So please consider joining us and being part of our family. My topic is multimodal refractive imaging for characterizing lens dysfunction and planning refractive cataract surgery. These are my financial disclosures, and I start basically with the BIDA's 3 paths for failure. Not to teach what is known, not to practice what you teach, and not to ask what is being ignored. So with this in mind, we come with the refractive surgery mindset 2020 plus, including basic definitions on what is elective and therapeutic refractive surgery, lens dysfunction and refractive cataract surgery, understanding the role of imaging, multimodal refractive imaging for making conscious decisions, understanding corneal ectasia susceptibility, endothelium, and other properties of the cornea like astigmatism and optical quality, so that we can improve our planning and results for the patients. Basic definitions are important. We first learned that refractive surgery is a subspecialty of ophthalmology, but it may have evolved as a super specialty of medicine in which ophthalmology is a requirement. Elective refractive procedures for visual correction should be considered in terms of the goal, and the goal is patient satisfaction. That should be always in our minds, satisfaction with quality of vision and quality of life. A few months ago, a colleague from Portugal, a resident that was visiting me, he asked me about where I did learn what I was doing. And I was really fortunate for training with Steve Wilson at the University of Washington in Seattle, and also with Dr. Sidental in São Paulo. And I learned that we are here to learn, to continuously evolve towards the best versions of ourselves, to learn, to always learn, the ways to learn, how to teach and serve, to be taught and to teach, to understand and optimize, and to acknowledge and flourish. And this is really resonating with the invitation for joining the World College of Refractive Surgery and Vision Sciences by Guy Kazarian. This year, the Academy had a very nice interview with the day on the future of refractive surgery, which is basically related to the huge involvement of refractive surgery for cataract planning, and the concept of refractive cataract surgery is really a must. Understanding lens dysfunction and the words matter concept from Danduri is also very important. How to tell people about lens dysfunction, which involves basically accommodation and loss of transparency. A few years ago, the CRST Europe asked us to define refractive cataract surgery, and I think it's basically related to conscious individualized planning for what the patients need, understanding anatomy, optical properties of the cornea, and a comprehensive evaluation that goes from the understanding of the back of the eye, optic nerve, macula, retina, and the periphery, vitreous, anterior chamber depth, lens characteristics, and the freedom of the cornea, cornea transparency and shape, and understanding that we should get value for our work, and the value with the refractive goal for having a happy patient, increasing safety and efficiency always, and understanding the net medical needs, assessing patients' needs, and simulations objectively may be an important need, and of course, improving IOLs, like in the accommodating IOLs that you're dreaming that we can get a better or even a equal better performance in terms of optics as a young crystalline lens. The diagnostics for refractive surgery evolved, and we have to think about what we're trying to achieve, if it's optimized planning, cornea, phakic IOLs, lens surgery, if there's a therapeutic or refractive procedure on the cornea, if you prefer to the surgeon the cornea, LASIK, SMILE, and PRK, understanding how to prevent complications, and looking at how we do that, and we do that with multimodal refractive imaging. Understanding the hows and the whats is related to the application of the data, and application of the vast amount of data that we have sometimes is challenging, and artificial intelligence comes to be very handy in terms of the applications for efficiency. And artificial intelligence, along with the philosophy, which is ancient intelligence, I came with this algorithm, which is A2I squared. A few years ago, I was honored to collaborate with Fernando Faria Correa on his thesis at the University of Minho for characterizing lens dysfunction. And it's important that we look at different data like wavefront integrated with topography and shine fluid imaging, that we characterize phaco-dynamics and other aspects of lens dysfunction so that we can understand when to do surgery and how to do surgery. Whole eye wavefront technology has been introduced, and a lot of people would consider that will be a replacement for corneal topography, which is a basically huge misunderstanding. The topography gives you the ability for looking at cases like those three eyes that had 20/20 or better distance correct vision and almost lit lamps and abnormalities detected in terms of ectasia development. And ectasia should be screened for before laser cataract surgery, refractive cataract surgery in this trifocal toric IOL patient, very unhappy. You see the placido disc topography and the topometric maps from the shine fluke would make a very clear that is a little bit irregular, but it's much unquestionable when you look at the TBI. Interestingly, this patient has a low K keratoconus, and this is a Steve Kleiss 1.5 diopter scale, and you see the inferior stiffening that is even abnormal in the TKC, but the cornea is not so steep at all. Understanding the corneal abnormalities in looking at the need for going beyond topography to tomography and eventually biomechanics was published this year by the group from Japan, led by Shizuka Ko, And it's very important that we look at the integration of tomography from the shine fluid imaging and biomechanics. In this case, this patient presented with 20/20 minus in the right eye and 20/15 in the left eye. This patient had a very interesting posterior elevation, but not abnormal at all at the D score on the pentacam, and this may qualify as a false negative. Eventually, it's much more complete when we analyze along with the shine fluid imaging, and this patient was clearly abnormal in the right eye. So I decided not to do anything for this patient, characterizing lens dysfunction to be grade 2 to 3, not 3. And eventually, having this objectively classified was important for us. The early presbyopia as stage 1. When you have stage 2, you have a loss of accommodation that is more than a +2 need. And eventually, when you go to the mild loss of transparency with quality of vision, the need of objective documentation is when you should consider refractive cataract surgery. And it's not so difficult when you lose high contrast correct vision, even a little bit when it's more pronounced. And this can be objectively analyzed with the shine fluid imaging and also with quality of metric, like the double pass, very nice contribution of Dr. George Waring and Carolina Rocha. Both of them are co-authors of the review paper. Interestingly, the integration of corneal tomography and wavefront here was a poster from 2004. And this time we had to do a laborious work to get the floppy A from the Atlas and also to burn a wavefront, a CD from the wavefront on the VFA Tracy first generation. And now it's much easier. We have this data, for example, this patient has 2015, and you see the modulation transfer function. And this data can be very nicely analyzed objectively as a very good lens, not as in this case that you have a little bit of a loss of quality of vision, and eventually this patient may qualify for refractive cataract surgery. This is an example relatively old from 2007 from a patient that I decided to do a toric IOL, and this patient has unquestionable cataract, even though he was 20/25 minus 2, and also was able to characterize it based on the sequent stray light, which is a very nice objective parameter. And after surgery, you can see that the astigmatism inside the eye really neutralized the astigmatism on the cornea, and you see the improvement of the stray light values. Very nice work by Tom Vandenberg, and this patient even got some uncorrected 20/20 with a J2 based on the astigmatism, which is related to the enhanced depth of focus that this patient had with a toric IOL. Interestingly, astigmatism that is irregular on the cornea, but also more irregular inside the eye in this case, that was presenting to me as a candidate for cross-linking. Looking at the anterior chamber depth, you see a symmetry, which is really, really obvious when you dilate the patient and look at the slit lamp. So this patient should be understood to go beyond the cornea and understanding the lens. This is a sublux lens that would not benefit from cross-linking in the cornea. Another case, a patient that 72 years old with 20/30 minus 2, you see the nice documentation of the retroillumination correlating with the centroids of the Hartmann check with the Pentacam AXL wave, and this patient has also some abnormality that is being detected on the back of the cornea. This abnormality in the back of the cornea is related to the second hump sign in both eyes, and this is related to Goutte, and this patient would be one of the cases that I would say to do the surgery as sooner as possible, because the lens is not so rigid and we have more chances for protecting this endothelium. Very nice work by colleagues from the Mayo Clinic on the determining of subclinical ectasia that I was really honored to write an editorial commentary in ophthalmology on advanced corneal imaging, including shine fluid image and also OCT for the documentation of the higher reflex from the endothelial level. Ocular wavefront in ophthalmology has been around for many years. Pioneer work by Professor Bille and the understanding of optical aberrations and adaptive optics so that you can eventually mimic what the patient is seeing and improve with adaptive optics to enhance quality of vision. I have my own experience with this very nice tool from VAO, from Voptica, and this was in ISRS 2014, and I enjoyed high contrast with the adaptive optics distance corrected vision, but with this type of correction, I really understood my presbyopia because I have a little bit of astigmatism. And interesting, it was a very good demonstration also from the contrast that I would have if I decided to go for a toric, trifocal IOL, and I would lose contrast and have a lot of halos. So I won't be very happy with that. So it's a very nice tool for simulating. This is a monocular simulation, and this will be one of the what I remember to have in terms of the halos and loss of contrast. Optical misalignment is important. The angle alpha and angle kappa, as described by Jack Holliday, the angle alpha is the distance between the first Purkinje and the optical in the center of the pupil, the kappa in the center of the pupil, and the alpha is the center of the cornea, looking at the white matrix. Interestingly, this centroids of the pupil would change with meiosis, and we know that meiosis changes happens with accommodation, and we have here my eye a few years back when I was still able to accommodate. 2005, I was 33 years old that time, and you see my accommodation and you see my centroid shift, which is something that should be considered when you plan for refractive cataract surgery. Interestingly, I think that the future of cataract refractive surgery goes with imaging, the when and how to do it with multimodal corneal imaging for assessing characterization of the needs of the patient and lens dysfunction, doing an enhanced characterization of the cornea, biomechanics, and the film, tear film, the shape and optical quality, corneal power, toricity for IOL calculations, along with AXL, very nice measurements from optical biometry, ELP estimation for IOL power with very nice formulas that we have. And in the future, I think we rely very much on add-on IOLs, adjustable IOLs, and eventually accommodating IOLs. So the future is really promising for refractive cataract surgery. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you. I think that's Dr. Ambrosió mentioned very, very important points regarding multifocal implantation, IOL implantation in patients that we need to do many things before we go for surgery. The second talk is by Dr. Jorge Alió about new accommodative IOLs.
Hello, my name is Jorge L. I'm happy to present to you the following presentation about innovations in intraocular lenses. My topic is new accommodative IOLs, and I want to thank this opportunity to contribute to look to the future and in the topic of IOLs in evolution in this interesting session. This is my disclosure of conflict of interest, and I have to declare that I am consultant of the company in which the material will be shown in the following presentation. The question is, can we restore accommodation with an intraocular lens? We have to acknowledge that the main understanding about accommodation is coming from the studies and the hypothesis of Hermann von Helmholtz, in which accommodation happens with the ciliary body in action, changes actively the power of the eye according to its ciliary body effect, increasing the power of the lens. According to this theory, accommodative lens should be only go to those that can change the power of the eye according to active action of the ciliary body. We have to learn the lessons from the past.
errors might be possible, even by talented people. Many times studies have had poor methodology or have suffered a commercial bias, investigators' vanity, or poor monitorization. A good example of this are the following slides. For instance, this is a graphic in which we are going to show to you the activity of these accommodative lenses of the past, which were the crystallines and the synchromic, when compared with a spherical non-accommodative monofocal lens. As you can see here in the image, they showed in our independent study no significant difference at all with the effect of the accommodative, and the only one difference of the crystallines was due to the near vision error 1 diopter plus that the lenses were having without any accommodative action. In other words, neither of these lenses were accommodative. We have only three ways in which the accommodation can be accomplished. One is the change in axial position with single or dual optics. Other is change in shape of curvature. And finally, we can have a change in refractive index or power, which is the real action of accommodation. One is the change in axial position with single or dual optics. Other is change in shape of curvature. And finally, we can have a change in refractive index or power, which is the real action of accommodation. The conditions for new accommodative IRS, forgetting the mistakes and problems of the past, should be the following. First, should it be located outside or inside the capsular bag? The outcomes have to be tested by homologated optometrical standards for near vision, which is 40 centimeters, and intermediate, which is 70 centimeters, not to other type of distances that are created tremendous confusion when understanding these lenses. Accommodation should be measured by subjective and objective tests, because of the accommodation can be happening and should be identified, and the outcomes should be proven in multicentrical studies and in long-term clinical observations. The first question is whether the lens should be inside or outside the bag. Let me show to you some information with scientific basis for that purpose. The capsular bag has many problems to be the location of accommodative lens. First is a basal membrane of the lens epithelium. Second, once that the capsular bag is emptied, there are no functions and no anatomical reasons for it to exist. Third, fibrosis and atrophy are unavoidable and has no function, this capsule, once that anatomy is not going to support any action. In other words, no function, no anatomy, no possibility to keep the capsular bag its real elasticity and a functional structure. And the capsular bag, for these reasons, cannot function in the long term when it is emptied. This was demonstrated in the paper that we have published in Journal Refractive Surgery in the reference that you see above. We are using the sulcus to place an accommodative IOLs based on the the reference that I'm providing to you in this slide. We reached this conclusion with the study that I'm going to show to you, in which we investigated the force dynamics at the capsular interface related to ciliary body stimulation in a primate model. Please look at the reference which is at the bottom. This was performed in the old monkey, which is a monkey in which the eye is very similar to the human being, and this primate study showed very interesting data. In these eyes, we implanted a device which was capable to move according to ciliary body action, either when this ciliary body was stimulated by pilocarpine or by the ring stimulation of the Edgar-Westphal nucleus. This was performed in conjunction with Dr. Kaufman with the University of Wisconsin. We could demonstrate that there was a dose-related stimulus relationship, and according to the stimulus was higher the effect, and so accommodation was happening when this device was implanted in the sulcus even 1 year after the implantation. None of this activity was evident in capsular bag when this device was implanted in capsular bag beyond the 3rd month of follow-up. We could demonstrate that implantation in the sulcus of this device at 1 year was not followed by any destructive action of the haptics and no ischemic or inflammatory obvious lesions in the ciliary sulcus, as you see in these endoscopic images. In conclusion, the capsular bag seems to be a wrong location for an accommodative IOL due to its unavoidable decadence and fibrosis once the crystal is empty. The forces generated at the sonular anterior capsule systems are probably those to be used for accommodative IOLs. And this is how we created the fundamentals of the theory of the lumina. The lumina is a lens that is based on the Albrecht principles, who owned and was obtained the Nobel Prize in 1967 with a patent that created the theory of the varifocal lenses. In this case, 2 varifocal lenses, when sliding one onto the other, created a continuous chasing power related to the displacement in the frontal plane, exactly what we were looking in accommodation. This is the lens when implanted in the sulcus in a real human eye, and you can see here the dual optics and how these varifocal surfaces can be displaced one onto the other according to the ciliary body action. This is how we implant the Acrolex lumina. The Acrolex lumina is a lens that is implanted in the sulcus. It is about the same implantation technique that we use for any lens. We use the positive meridian to make the incision, which should be 3 millimeters, and we proceed in this case with by manual surgery in the microincisional cataract surgery technique that we usually practice. Here you see how we have eliminated the nucleus. We are now cleaning the capsular bag, eliminating the residual cortex and the cells of the anterior capsule. Finally, we are going to load the lens, as you will see immediately. We have opened the sulcus, and the viscoelastic has been used in the ciliary sulcus. We're opening now this initial incision to 3 millimeters, and now we are loading the lens into the cartridge. The lumina is a hydrophilic lens, has 2 optics, and has to be taken out from the cartridge in which it is provided in order to be implanted in a regular injector. You can see here the haptics that are designed to be located in the ciliary sulcus and in this way to be stimulated by ciliary body action. The lens is now implanted. As you see, the distal haptic is injected exactly in the sulcus, and with the second instrument we are pushing backwards the trial haptic in order to be entering behind the iris exactly in the sulcus. As you see, this lens is implanted in women, and particular skills are necessary to perform this surgery. The lens is finally centered, and we are verifying that it is inside, not inside the capsular bag, but outside, and the haptics are well located in the sulcus. We measure by the wavefront analyzer, the one, the forces generated in bilateral surgeries performed one eye with monofocal while the other with lumina. And you can see here with the same stimulus, no effect of accommodation was detected in the monofocal lens, while the effect was located undetected in the lumina eye. This is another study in which we could demonstrate how high were the forces generated and the change in diopters related to the distance observed by the eye concerning the target when this was approximated to the eye. This study led to a pilot investigation because we had already demonstrated the safety of the implant after 4 years follow-up in partially shutted eyes. In this case, we implanted normally shutted eyes with potential for lumina, and these implants were performed bilaterally. We operated here up to 82 eyes and controls in order to compare the effectivity with the one wavefront analyzer and subjective methods, how the eyes implanted bilaterally in the same patient with the lumina behave when compared with a monofocal controls implanted also bilaterally. You can see here that the lumina lens behave as was formerly shown. It really demonstrated an increase in power of the eye related to the distance of the subject. This was not happening in the monofocal patients at all, as you see in this image. We could demonstrate that variability exists as any restoration of a human function. Some of the profiles of the focus score were plateau or were a peak, and others were very similar to normal accommodation. In general, they were performing as the modern EDOF lenses with better vision for near than the monofocal as well. Here you see that there was a significant increase in the near vision power and the near vision effectivity of the eye when we were implanting the lumina when compared with the monofocal samples. The conductivity function was analyzed and was normal, and was, when compared with the monofocal samples, was exactly non-significant different, what means that this lens is behaving as a monofocal lens in terms of contrast sensitivity. These results were published in the American Journal of Ophthalmology in 2016, and you can read this article in which this pilot study investigation is reported. Here you see how we follow the study, and again, comparing the lumina with the monofocals, we could obtain not only a real increase in power related to the cerebral reaction, we could demonstrate as well how accommodation is not an stable function, but rather than that is a function that varies in fractions of seconds, what means that the muscle is active and keep the term of patients with 30 years or less. The lumina was providing about 1/3 of the accommodation that we could detect in a normal 30 years old patient. This led to the new design of the lumina, which is the one that we are implanted here. Now, the lens is thinner. The haptics are designed in a way that was better the forces of the cerebral body, and in general performs better. We have a study in a second study that was also prospectively implanted and analyzing the results of the lumina, as you will see now immediately. You can see that the range of accommodation was about 2.5 diopters with a mean of 1.5. The near visual acuity was significantly better with the lumina than controls. Here you see how the focus score was significantly better, outstandingly better, let's say, with the lumina than the monofocal controls in all the study. We can see here that the patients were not using glasses in over 95% of the cases, and they had functional reading ability in most of the cases as well. The result was stable after 1 year and 3.3 years following the implantation, what means that this effect is not lost with time, and the focal core was kept in the same standards as described before along the 3 years of follow-up. You can see here how the corrected distance visual acuity in lumina versus control was the same, was the near visual acuity was significantly better in the lumina from 1 to 3 years after the implantation. Conductivity was demonstrated again that was not significantly different than the monofocal group, and the Jagdische capsulotomy that was performed in about 30% of the cases not only didn't decrease the effect of the lumina, but rather this was increased, which was an outstanding finding, as you will see immediately. Here you see how, in this patient, the focus curve increased following the yearly capsulotomy, not only in far vision, but also in near vision. This is the implantation that was performed in an eye in which we suffer a capsular break of the posterior capsule, and you see that the lumina was even accommodated in these circumstances as far as it was happening in the other eye that was implanted also with the lumina. Actually, the eye implanted with the lumina in the capsular break was behaving better than the other eye, which is amazing. We can see here how the capsular break did better the eye than the other, which means, again, together with the evidence provided by the yearly capsulotomy, that the posterior capsule is not necessary for accommodation, but rather is an obstacle for accommodation once the fibrosis has happened. In conclusion, the accommodative IOL Lumina phase 3 study confirms a significant improvement of near vision following cataract surgery. The near vision outcomes correlate well with the high satisfaction levels of the implanted patients. But the posterior capsule does not show to be necessary for pseudophakic accommodation. The lumina can be implanted safely and successfully following a capsular break, which is a remarkable issue. Angular laser capsulotomy improves the near vision performance of the lumina lens, on the contrary that was initially thought. I'm showing to you now the clinical quality of retinal image measured by pyramidal barometry. Here we have the swell ratio of the monofocal lens, and compared with the aqueous lumina, as you see, we have almost identical features. If we compare the lumina with the monofocal in the standards that we mentioned just in the previous slide, look here how an IRAVO lens that is actually performing now commercially shows to be much worse in terms of quality of retinal image than the monofocal lens, which really makes the lumina to compete favorably with the Dove lenses. You can see here the impact of this negative quality of retinal image in the convoluted image that is at the bottom of the slide. Here we have one example. It was a 48 years old female patient in which we saw the anatomical and visual outcomes at 12 months. Here you see how the lumina is implanted. You can see in the upper slide the two lenses of the lumina, how there is capsular fibrosis in this eye, and how the focus curve demonstrates that intermediate vision is very good and near vision is very much improved. And accordingly, the objective measurements of the one are evident here, demonstrating that the focus curve is following accommodation. Here we have a 49 years old male with previous capillary LASIK that suffered relatively high levels of corneal aberrations due to moderate decentration. At the end of the second year, the patient was extremely happy with very good vision for far and excellent for near, and a very good defocus curve that made him to be completely spectacle independent. The lumina is the ideal lens for those corneas that are aberrated and so cannot be implanted with a multifocal lens, but definitely the lumina has an excellent indication in these conflicted cases. This is a case string that was a professional golf player, particularly critical with the far and intermediate and near vision as well, as far as the profession of her needed to see the ball in distance with excellent profile. You can see here how is the anterior cornea surface that was affected by previous LASIK, and again this case could not be for a multifocal lens because the demands of the patient in terms of quality of far vision couldn't be guaranteed by a multifocal lens, and especially with DC, this was an aberrated cornea due to previous LASIK. The case did perfectly. The patient was excellent in terms of patient satisfaction, and far and near vision was outstanding. 1 year after, this case suffered capsular fibrosis and had yearly capsulotomy. Again, see how far intermediate and near vision are improving following yearly capsulotomy, following the implantation of the lumina lens, as you see 1 year after the implantation. Case 4 is a 58 years old engineer that had visual loss related to cataract with a hypercritical personality, in which you doubtfully are going to make this patient selected for multifocal lens. He hated to use glasses and was clearly demanding spectacle independence. At 6 months, the patient was totally spectacle independent with excellent outcome for far and near and major and great patient satisfaction. This is the focus curve of this patient that shows excellent profile that it really correlates with the spectacle independence, and at the bottom you see the Cassia OCT images demonstrating the profile of the lens properly implanted in the sulcus. For those that are interested in accommodated lenses, please read this summary that we published in IM Vision, and in which we will read everything about modern accommodated lenses and also about the lumina outcomes. those that are interested in the lumina, please read these references in which you will see our second phase 2 study and the phase 3 clinical study. Now the lens is with a CE mark and will be commercial on 2022, hopefully. You can read also about the lumina in our book entitled Multifocal Intraocular Lenses, second edition, the art and the practice, edited with Joseph Pickel, and you can see here how the lumina compares favorably related to and compared to the multifocal lenses. Finally, I want to remember to you that multifocality is not physiological. Multifocal optics will always require some degree of neuroadaptation, and once that real accommodated IOLs are developed adequately, multifocal lenses will be unable to compete, as happened with pseudophakic glasses and intraocular lenses when they were properly developed. I want just to remind to you that we have a course that will be very interesting for those junior ophthalmologists interested in refractive, cornea, and lens surgery, with this course of 500 teaching hours of didactic activities, full in English, and it's the most updated course that you can find with a university certificate in a non-profit organization, which is University Miguel Hernández, in which I am the chairman and director. And I want to thank you and the Universal Council of Ophthalmology for this opportunity to tell to you my opinions and to communicate to you my studies about the lumina lens and other studies about intraocular lenses. Thank you very much.
It was a great presentation, and always we can expect so from Dr. Alió. Now we go for the third speaker, Dr. Pablo Artal, and his topic is peripheral vision after cataract surgery. And no, we are ready now.
Hello, I'm Pablo Artal from the University of Murcia in Spain, and I'm going to talk to you today about an issue that is not very well acknowledged in cataract surgery, but is related with peripheral vision. I would like first to acknowledge the organizers for inviting me to participate even remotely in this meeting. And we are located in Murcia, in southeast Spain, and this work had been basically performed in my laboratory at the university and also at the startup Boptica, developing the ART IOLs. Well, you know that there have been a lot of advances in intraocular lenses, but all current lenses, they are still not adequate for peripheral vision. And the reason is very simple to understand. Intraocular lenses today, they are very thin lenses, and there is a very good reason for that. This is very good for the surgical procedure. But the optical role is to actually substitute a very thick lens, as is the crystalline lens. So the main difference is going to be a really very significant problem in the image quality in the periphery. And in this slide here, you have a comparison of a ray tracing for different angles in the retina, where on axis, basically both, of course, the natural lens and the standard biconvex IOLs, they are doing well. But at the periphery, our eye is really doing a much better job optically than standard intraocular lenses. Actually, we know this from several years because we published a paper in the journal IOVS several years ago, where we basically measure peripheral refraction in eyes with still with the natural eye. So we select a group of patients with eye that there was still non-operated and the other eye with a standard intraocular lens. We basically discovered that this is eccentricity, this is spherical refraction, that in the natural eye, the periphery was really very good control, the curvature, but field curvature, but in the pseudophakic eyes, there was a significant defocus. In addition, peripheral astigmatism was also larger with the pseudophakic eye with the standard intraocular lenses as compared with natural eye. So we knew that the optics with the standard lenses was not good in the periphery. And for decades, basically, every IOL had been basically designed only for a small part of the visual field. We believe, and there is a lot of studies related with peripheral vision, we believe that actually when there is problems with peripheral vision, this can be a very significant problems for patients. In particular, there is an increased risk of falls, poor object recognition, driving difficulties, and at the end, a limited freedom of movement and loss of independence. So peripheral vision for patients are really very, very important. So we recognize this problem, and during several years we had been actually working in a new concept, a new intraocular lens that, of course, have to be thin because we don't want to compromise surgical procedures. But basically, we designed intraocular lens with a meniscus shape that somehow mimic the natural lens to provide optimized field curvature and better vision in the periphery. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this. So this is the shape, inverted meniscus shape. These lenses are, the name is ART IOL, and they are already CMAR, and they are implanted in, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that in Europe. And these are the specification. Basically, they are hydrophobic acrylic material, very standard, everything except the inverted meniscus shape. Before starting the implantation in subjects, in patients, we did a lot of testing in simulation and optical bench. I'm going to show to you some of the results of this. These are in a model eye, the point spread function, the image with a standard for a 45 degrees in a standard intraocular lens. You see a lot of astigmatism, and with our IOL, that is really much better. We also perform calculations based in images in a model eye. So this is using real lenses in the model eye. And on axis, we compare with a standard biconvex monofocal. And you see the images are very similar and they are good on axis, what we were expected. However, when you go to 40 degrees, our inverted meniscus lenses, these are really much better. So theory and optical measurements in model eyes show that this was really working. So we basically started last year, actually at the same time of the pandemic, basically, so we were relatively slow with implantation, and we already have around 1,000 ART IOLs implanted in Spain, and this Dr. Pedro Taña and Jose Maria Marin had been the persons in Ophthalmology Clinic implanting most of these lenses. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the clinical results, that they are really fantastic. First, well, how these lenses are sitting. So you can see this anterior segment OCT of one of the patients, and basically this is the situation. So it's a kind of nice. These lenses are sitting a little bit behind, but it's also good optically. So we wanted to really understand the impact in the periphery, so we measure both peripheral defocus and peripheral astigmatism. And in a significant group, we measured 158 eyes with our IOLs, and we use a group with a control group with a standard biconvex intraocular lenses with 61 eyes in black. So this is what's happened. So basically, our lens is controlling peripheral defocus much better. For this is 40 degrees here, as compared to standard bifocal. So there is, for 40 degrees, there is around 2 diopters off. And astigmatism, there is all astigmatism in our eye, right? And so with these lenses, we are also reducing from 1.5 to around 3 diopter in the standard IOL. So we really demonstrated that what we predicted in the theory was actually happening in patients. Of course, you can tell, well, this is better optics, but this is in the periphery, and the visual system in the periphery has a very low resolution because the retinal sampling, the ganglion cell sampling, and so on. So what's happening with visual function? So we also measure contrast sensitivity. Basically, we measure contrast detection sensitivity at 45 degrees. It was a very simple psychophysical test where subjects were fixating and there appear a target at 45 degrees. And again, we compare the results in the control group with biconvex lenses and the meniscus group. And well, you can see there is a significant improvement in contrast sensitivity with our lenses. So better optics and also better contrast sensitivity. How this really affect functional vision and daily life? Well, we don't know yet. So that's, to be honest, we know that there is better optics with the lenses, there is better contrast sensitivity in the periphery. We don't know how this really can affect. We speculate that this can have a very significant impact. And to understand this a little bit better, you can see this simulation. This is a simulation, I have to say. But this is, imagine somebody just going downstairs and basically looking ahead, and there is these steps around 40 degrees. The image of these steps with standard IOL is something like this. With our lenses is much more visible. So we believe that this task will be really better, and of course we need still to demonstrate. So basically, we have these new lenses, a new concept that improve peripheral optics and peripheral contrast sensitivity, and we believe functional vision. Very briefly, it's that, while these lenses are not only good for peripheral vision, we also design with something else on mind. Basically, this is a family of EDOF lenses, extended depth of focus lenses. So the idea, it's very simple. Basically, they are refractive EDOF lenses, and there is 4 models, all meniscus shape, and with different amount of asphericity from 25 to the 70, basically increasing depth of focus at different amounts, basically. We also have very nice clinical results on that. This is our monocular through focus curve in a group of patients, and you can see that they are all behaving like EDOF lenses for the very mild, what we call R25, and medium R40, and kind of a strong EDOF is the R70 that actually is getting a J1 at a target of 2.5 diopters. So we combine these 2 features, inverted meniscus, customized EDOF. So in summary, these lenses that they are CMR, they have hydrophobic material, they are of course normal, easy to implant. We already have excellent clinical results. We demonstrate improved peripheral vision and reduce oblique astigmatism. These are also customizable EDOF lenses. And well, we are convinced that this is a really unique optical technology for a better quality of vision of your patients. So this is ready for your patients. People are starting to implant more in Europe, and I think this will be available in other countries because they are CMR, and with these 2 specific features, right? Paying attention to peripheral vision and improving and customizing. You can select either depending on the needs of your patient. So thank you very much for your attention, and I will be this has been pre-recorded as you know, but actually I will be on live just to answer any question or comment. So thanks again, and we just let's talk in a minute in person.
It was a great presentation by Dr. Artal. It seems that the competition is between two Spanish IOLs so far. So we go for the next speaker, which is a friend of mine, and Dr. Harilaos Ginis. His topic is understanding entoptic phenomena in IOLs.
Hello, I am Harilaos Ginis. I'm happy to participate in the Look at the Future 3 webinar and titled IOLs in Evolution. I will present to you my work on understanding endoptic phenomena in IOLs. I would like to acknowledge our support from the Felux Foundation. Peripheral optics in the human eye are amazing. The optical system of the human eye not only can focus properly light in the center, in the fovea, but can also keep a decent image quality up to the far periphery. What is interesting to observe is that the field curvature is so steep, following the shape of the retina, maintaining adequate image quality even to the far periphery. Intraocular lenses are thin devices that are designed to be inserted easily into the eye and are designed optically to substitute the power of the crystalline lens on the axis. However, this biconvex design does not serve image quality in the mid and far periphery. In addition to providing poor image quality in the periphery, intraocular lenses direct peripheral rays to slightly different locations on the retina compared to an equal power crystalline lens. This is based on the thickness of the intraocular lens being thinner and having its principal plane more anteriorly compared to the natural crystalline lens. This phenomenon results to a distortion of the retinal image, having different magnification in the center and different in the far periphery. Again, this is a problem that can be resolved by an intraocular lens of appropriate design. In addition, finally, intraocular lenses may be associated to endoptic phenomena called dysphotopsias, where we have the positive dysphotopsia, where light is reflected somewhere at the edge of the IOL and is forming a bright reflection somewhere near the central visual field, indicated by the green ray in the schematic, and negative dysphotopsia, where part of the light is reaching the IOL and part of the light is propagating through the space between the IOL and the iris. In this video showing to the right, we have an artificial eye with anatomical reference to the human eye, and these phenomena are directly visualized in realistic conditions. I will be showing more about this artificial eye later on in the presentation. investigate these phenomena in the eye, we have developed a model eye, a physical model of the human eye, having a cornea made of PMMA, which is filled with water and has an intraocular lens holder at the correct plane, where the camera is immersed in the water and can be rotated to any angle in the visual field. This eye has been used both for on-axis and off-axis measurements and the characterization of intraocular lenses, and has helped us to identify and directly visualize some of these phenomena. As an example of on-axis studies that we have performed is this through-focus analysis of image quality, where this artificial eye is combined with a tunable lens, where we derive a visually relevant image quality directly from the captured images. This image quality metric, which we call the objective letter sharpness, is used to characterize the effectiveness of different intraocular lenses in focusing light in different distances. In these examples, you see in the top you have a monofocal lens with a clear far focus. You have a need-off lens with an extended focus towards the near, and then a trifocal lens with the characteristic far, near, and intermediate peaks. In a different set of experiments that is more relevant to the present talk, we have used these artificial eyes to analyze image quality in the periphery, directly recording images of visual charts. In this example, you see a very prominent standard monofocal IOL, and you see the deterioration of image quality as we move from 0 to 10, 20, 30, and 40 degrees. At 40 degrees, we have a big amount of astigmatism, can be 8 or more diopters depending on the power of the intraocular lens, which is essentially what is limiting the capacity of the optical system to properly focus light at these angles. As Pablo Artal also mentioned in his talk, a meniscus-shaped lens can significantly improve image quality in the far and mid-periphery. In this example, you see how the image quality of a chart appears at 0 degrees and how it appears at 45 degrees with a standard monofocal lens and an EDOF meniscus lens from Voptica. In particular, it is the ART40 model. The reduction of image quality in the far periphery in the pseudophakic eye is a real phenomenon, and it has real implications in the visual performance of pseudophakic patients. In a recent study published in Biomedical Optics Express, we identified the loss of contrast sensitivity in the periphery in a number of healthy subjects when we introduced this amount of astigmatism in their eyes. The reduction was about 2 dB, or in other words, it took about double the brightness of the spot in order to be identified by the subject. So it is a real and important improvement of visual performance if these phenomena can be prevented and corrected by the appropriate optics. Recently, lenses featuring a smaller optic of about 5 millimeters or so have been introduced, and virtually all manufacturers have a lens like this because it facilitates implantation through an even smaller incision. We investigated the role of this peripheral skirt in those lenses when increasing pupil diameter between 4.5 and 6 millimeters using a simulation of a natural scene. In this simulation, we have a night driving scene and a glare source within the visual field. And in the image in the top, you can see how this retinal image appears when the pupil is 4.5 millimeters. But when the pupil is 6 millimeters, in the lower image, you can see a halo, a bright halo appearing around the glare source. These phenomena are even more pronounced in the peripheral visual field, where the edge has an even more important role in the peripheral image formation. So when implanting those lenses, the surgeon should be aware of these phenomena that might arise in night driving conditions if the patient has pupil diameter bigger than 5 millimeters. As I mentioned earlier, we have used this artificial eye to study and to directly visualize negative dysphotopsia phenomena. You can see the characteristic meniscus produced by a point source at a far distance and passing through the gap between the lens optic and the iris. This phenomenon is occurring at around 75 or 80 degrees, and this phenomenon is at around 70 degrees of retinal field angle. What is interesting to observe here is that the meniscus shape also helps minimize this phenomenon, because the given pseudophakic ACD is associated with a narrower gap in the periphery as the meniscus reduces the opening in the periphery, and there is less space for the light to go through this opening. Another very interesting technology that we think will have a future in IOL implantation is the Fixoflex ring from IPCR. There are different approaches to an open capsule and to an exchangeable platform for intraocular lenses. However, the Fixoflex has the advantage that accepts any type of C-type, C-loop type of IOLs, and moreover it has two clips that secure the optic in place, maintaining a very given anterior chamber depth with respect to the lens actuator. It is believed that this will increase not only the stability of the lens and the centration of the lens, but it will also improve the predictability of the refractive outcomes, as the post-operative anterior chamber depth, the pseudophakic ACD, will be more predictable. This is based on some earlier work that we did more than 10 years ago with these silicone prototypes that we were making in using molding technology. And to the photograph to the right, you can see how nicely the silicone ring is filling peripheral capsule, and still you can see the zonules and the space around the capsule. This patient had iridectomy for a different reason. We evaluated endoptic phenomena with this ring because we wanted to identify if internal flexions in the far periphery may cause a problem, or if we might have dysphotopsias of the positive type due to reflections in the clips. However, we didn't see anything like that, and moreover, we saw that this peripheral part that is acting as a support to the IOL is blocking light to the peripheral retina, and as a matter of fact is eliminating negative dysphotopsia. So this platform, we believe, is not only helping IOL implantation with respect to its primary outcomes, stability and predictability, but is also helping to reduce to some extent dysphotopsias in the eye. To summarize, vision in the pseudophakic eye is restored only on the fovea. Peripheral field is aberrated, distorted, and with various endoptic phenomena such as the dysphotopsias. Although the future can be accommodating active IOLs, the near future, which is now, is to restore functional vision in the entire visual field. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Harry, for your excellent presentation. And always you have new things, new ideas. And you know that I'm keen of that ring. And I think that it would be a very important and turning point, maybe device in future cataract surgery. The next speaker would be Piotr Tokarski, that he will talk to us.
IOLs laser micromachining. My name is Piotr Tokarski and I am in industry of lens manufacturing and micromachining for the last 25 years. The current IOLs machining technologies. The manufacturing of intraocular lenses remains time-consuming and economically challenging procedure to these days. This is especially true when considering customized IOLs. Intraocular lenses are typically manufactured using the late cutting, milling, compression molding, or injection molding. The biggest worldwide manufacturers are using the injection molding technology for producing the acrylic intraocular lenses. Up to this day, the intraocular lenses are polished using the tumbling method. And this is one of the most time-consuming way in the manufacturing of the intraocular lenses. To polish the acrylic lens, we need from 3 up to 7 days for the tumbling and polishing method. So it's a very time-consuming and economically challenging way. Laser micromachining. Laser micromachining is the only way to manufacture the fully customized intraocular lenses. Traditionally, machined lenses are losing the individual correction surface by the polishing process. Laser cutting, drilling, and polishing the acrylic polymers allow for producing of the IOL with individual surface for correction of the high-order aberration, the post-surgical problems. Laser ablation provides micron accuracy with the creation of the lens profile and the optical surface, including the individual map of correction. On the picture down, we see on the AutoCAD the individual lens that we can include the individual map of correction with the micron accuracy. Laser micromachining. Laser source as a laser head has the critical role for producing the individual surface with adequate power, fluence, and speed. To define adequate parameters for laser polymer cutting, we need to define the optimum parameter for polymer laser cutting. Defining the proper laser head and optoelectronics for the new technology. We define the laser based on the trials performed in Germany with Coherent and Innolas, in China with YSL Photonics, in France with Amplitude, in Poland with Fluence, and Lithuania with light conversion. Finally, we choose the laser head from light conversion, the carbide, which is on the picture, the right side. Laser micromachining. The integration of the system components. Femtosecond laser ablation is controlled together with femtosecond laser milling and femtosecond laser burst mode. First, femtosecond laser ablation is the CNC cutting. Femtosecond laser milling is the CNC milling. Femtosecond laser burst mode is the glass burst polishing. So we see all of the processes in one place. Integration of the system components. Integration of the system components and the working parameters to the laser station. The critical parameter for our investigation is the quality of the lens surface. Investigation of the polishing capabilities of the rough hydrophilic acrylic contact material, typically material used for the vision implants. Surface using burst of femtosecond laser pulses, while the initially rough surface of the samples was prepared by femtosecond laser ablation to the desired shape without using the bursts. Using the laser radiation, we can enhance the surface quality from 500, 600 up to 20 nanometers. On the picture down, we see the surface of the material after the rough cutting, after the laser ablation, with the rough surface 500, 600 nanometers, and on the left side, the polished by the laser ablation, the surface with the 20 nanometers surface quality. Polishing the lens surface. On the picture down, we see the unpolished and polished surfaces. The best polished surfaces we can see on the bottom of the picture on the left side, where the surface quality is 20 nanometer, and we can see the consistent surface quality and also the crystal clear optics of the lens. A successful polishing of the optical surface. The parametric study of the laser machining parameters consists of the following micromachining parameters: average laser power, scanning speed, scanning pitch, and number of sub-pulses within the burst showed in the polishing. The surface roughness value up to 20 nanometers is fully possible. The optimal surface temperature was found to be approximately 357 Celsius degrees, at which is possible to polish the material below the 20 nanometer roughness of the surface. Those values are fully acceptable for crystal clear lens optic. The prototype of the laser station. Integration of the photonics components. For the successful manufacturing of the intraocular lenses, we need to integrate the laser components and the working parameters. Compared with traditional technology, we are not using the multi-nest production line. With laser technology, everything is integrated in one place, but the different components are managed on the software system. The whole automation allows for reducing the human labor and increasing the overall quality with the lens manufacturing. We're not using the multi-nest process. We are just doing everything in one place, integrated in one laser station. Prototype of the laser machining station. To build the prototype of the optical layout and designing the optoelectronics modules. For building the prototype, we used the carbide 20 watts laser from the light conversion, galvanized camera IntelliScan, the telecentric lens Theta 100 mm. In addition, when the scanner with the lens was mounted on the Z-axis translation stage, we see on the picture on the right side the XY translation stage is down and the Z-X translation stage up. And the galvo scanning system is mounting to the translation stage together with precision camera, which measure the lens surface before cutting and after the cutting, and also the camera is positioning the material under the scanning system before of the cutting and before of the polishing. And all the position control and laser beam control is under the micromachining software DMC. Customization of the intraocular lens. There is no existing product which can fully satisfy the patients with huge visual problems, high order aberration, post-LASIK, presbyopia demanding patients. All the refractive surgeons understand the necessity of customized IOLs for cataract surgery. The diagnostic tools are existing, the iTrace, the iDesign, or the NIDEC OPD Scan 3. On the picture on the right side, we see the eye, and we measure high order aberration with the exact positioning for correction of the high order aberrations. Laser lens machining and the freeform optics. Refractive IOLs are particularly sensitive to corneal irregularities, and proper selection of candidates for those IOLs platforms are critical. In patients with prior laser vision correction, both IOL power calculation and high order aberration evaluation require additional focus. Those patients expect to maintain the same spectacular independence that they enjoy after the refractive surgery. The art of IOL customization, finding the best platform, customize the visual correction, and digitally transform the map of correction for designed IOL surface profile. For manufacturing the individual lenses, the only one option is the laser lens machining. On the picture below, we see the freeform optics, means the not rotationally symmetric optics, which can be manufactured only with the laser lens machining. The other technologies, like the traditional CNC technology or injection molding technology with tumble polishing, are provided to destroy the individual surface, the freeform optics, with the polishing process. Only the laser lens machining provides the individual surface with the freeform optics, which can be used to fully customize the intraocular lenses. Thank you very much for the listening.
Thank you, Piotr, for your nice presentation. I can remember the day that we connected through LinkedIn, and we talk about your idea and you explain it, and I like it from the first day. And I think so that we can make accurate and more precise IOLs in the future by using or application of laser.
Thank you, Soheil, for the invitation.
You're welcome. Okay, I think now it's time to start Q&A and also the panel discussion. So please, all the speakers, unmute your mic and also your your video. Renato, can you hear me, Renato?
Yes, I can hear you. It was a great session.
Yeah.
Very happy to be here. Greetings from Brazil to all of you, to Spain, Iran, all over the world.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's good because that you are attending the session and you are contributing. And here I would like to take this opportunity to thank ISRS and you, especially Dr. Alió, and all the speakers for contributing. And it's a great session. Thank you very much for attending. Unfortunately, Dr. Alió is traveling, so he's lost the connection. So I think that we won't have Dr. Alió in this part. So, Harry, are you there?
Yes. Hello. Thank you for organizing this. Soheil, it was a pleasure and it was a very nice meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and thank you for joining and supporting this webinar. Okay. Do you have? I'm open. I think that you start with something that you start, or Renato or Pablo. Pablo, are you here?
I'm here. Hello. Good afternoon, or
Hello.
good evening, or good morning, depending where you are. So that's a nice thing. Yeah. Thank you very much. This is very, very nice, and happy to share with you all these minutes. So very happy.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for coming. Okay. Harry, do you have any idea or some questions? Or
Well,
feel free. I mean,
not questions, but I would like to also repeat what has been said through the meeting, that it is important to understand that cataract surgery does not pertain only to the fovea, but is also a matter of the full visual field. There are still phenomena that we are not understanding, the dysphotopsias, when they happen, how they happen, and what can be done in terms of optical design to prevent them. And also what Pablo presented, which is related to improving image quality in the periphery in all patients. Right now, the image quality in the pseudophakic eye in the mid and far periphery is far below the average eye. So it's and it is simple and straightforward to correct and make the eye having better peripheral vision. As I would say sometimes, we are struggling to make the cataract patient 25 years old again to accommodate, but we still haven't been to the point where we make the cataract eye 50 years old. Clear optics and flat and uniform visual field without problems. So thank you again.
Renato.
Well, I think the first big point, it's very happy to participate in this nice session. I always learn from Pablo Artal and his major contributions on optics, and also Alió and all of you. It was great to see the future really coming into this nice webinar. But the very first point I want to make is that cataract surgery is refractive surgery, and this should be in the mind of every refractive surgeon and also cataract surgeon, and they are about the same thing. And this is important so that we can plan when and how to do it, and take the advantage of the technology for measuring the eye and understanding the symptoms of the patients. And we all see patients that are not happy with the quality of vision, and eventually they have good high contrast distance visual acuity, and then sometimes uncorrected visual acuity is good and the patient is not happy. So we first started to understand that with the wavefront technologies about quality of vision, and today it's much more than that. So my major point is that we should be keen on understanding the technologies that we have to measure the patient and understand the symptoms and how we can do to help them in the best way as possible. So congratulations for doing this nice webinar. And I have a question to all the panel. What will be the best measurement for prevention of quality of vision symptoms after surgery that we can do before surgery today? What would be the best advice that you would give to the cataract refractive surgeon, how to measure the patient properly so that you can prevent the unhappy patient, and how to manage that?
Well, if I can take the question, because this is something I had been really interested for many years, right? And well, the answer is very complicated and not unique, and it's kind of depending on the type of IOL that you are going to implant, right? But my idea for many years, and we demonstrate that this may really work, is using the instrument that we and others are developing, that is they are based in visual simulation using adaptive optics or something else, that basically you can have your patients before the surgery, you can expose to different type of optics that imagine that can be diffractive or can be refractive or different type of particular optical profiles, and you get the feedback and you can really understand the need of the patient, and if it's going to be a patient that is going to be resistant for the halos that diffractive optics are inducing, because diffractive optics is not magic, right? You can produce different foci, you can get images in focus at different distances, but at the cost of producing halos and light that is dispersed. And as you know very well, some patients are really very tolerant. But others are very unhappy with that. So if you have these tools to really understand in advance what is going to be the subjective response for a particular patient, you for sure maximize the outcomes later, right? So it's a way to really not implanting. If you have a particular patient that after putting virtually with the adaptive optics a particular trifocal diffractive lens and is complaining very strongly about the halos or these photopsias, then, well, maybe you can think in another solution, in another micro monovision or EDOF lenses or whatever, right? So I think in the future, and this is my personal view, maybe I'm completely wrong, but in the future, I think that doctors and patients, they are going to have a conversation using this technology to really try to optimize what is best, right? Trying to customize what you are really customized based in what you measure objectively, but also what you have subjectively for the patient. But this is my personal view, and I'm probably wrong, but I think this is what probably, that should be my suggestion.
Yeah, I took the machine that you have for the adaptive optics in one of the meetings, and I remember it well. I was 44 or something like that, and I realized how much presbyopia was because I have a little astigmatism. And once you corrected the distance vision, I could not see anything for near. And then very nicely, he programmed a trifocal lens that will be a trifocal lens. And I could see distance, intermediate, and near very nicely, but with a lot of halos and some loss of contrast. And this is very unique. My point is that this was unilateral. When you think you'll be able to develop a bilateral system for doing this type of simulations?
Yeah, that's a very good question also. And actually we have in the laboratory a binocular version. What we don't have, because we are very small and we don't have enough resources, we don't have a commercial version. So we have a binocular version in the laboratory for several years, and it's in our ideas for the future. And you are right, this is very important, because the beauty of having, I think that many people are using binocularity, of course, but I think that using binocularity in a little bit smarter way, using this type of instrument, really will be a plus, will be a really much better result for the patient. And this instrument, you can really evaluate how much micromonovision you can tolerate, how you combine different asphericities in each eye, all that, right? So I think I cannot tell when hopefully we can have a device soon, but for the clinic. But in any case, this will be really very, very useful for many practical application. You are really completely right.
Thank you.
So I think that you will name it HT Analyzer 2.
Well, this is actually the HD Analyzer. As you know, this is a purely it's very useful, and it's pure but it's only objective measurement of the point spread function. What is very useful and is very good. What we are offering here with this adaptive optics is that we combine optical measurement that they are purely objective, but also subjective responses that in many aspects, they can be very important, right? It's a combination. But yeah, we are also with Haris working in we can tell it's not a complete secret. We are working also in a HD Analyzer 2, in a much better version of the objective.
Three. We skip 2 and we go directly to 3.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah, super fast. Okay. Piotr has mentioned, something new. I found him a daydreamer, to be honest. And I think that's it's very good to give him a chance to talk a little bit more about how Piotr, how do you see this technology in the future? Is it far from us, or because I can remember we were talking on phone and you told me that nowadays it's a very expensive technology, and so it means that it's an obligation to be commercialized. So what do you think? How do you see this technology, and how do you see the future?
I think the manufacturers of intraocular lenses for like normal traditional technology need to spend minimum 1.5 up to 2.5 million euros to install the production line. So I think the value of the instrumentation which will be on the market will be approximately a half of this money. And what is also very important, there is human labor. And for normal manufacturing of intraocular lenses, we need the multi-nest stations. So one station is cutting, another station is milling, another station is optical control and polishing, what is the most demanding as a time-consuming and economically most demanding. Also, with traditional technology, there is about 10% of losses in production, which is also an important factor. I think that when this technology will be available, the first use will be for the companies which really like to manufacture the customized intraocular lenses. Because as every panelist understands, there is a need of the instrument which can produce this kind of the lenses. And also we see in the presentations, also there is a very nice diagnostic instrument like iTrace or OPT3, which can provide us the very accurate measurement of the patient eye. And there is topography and wavefront, and we can introduce this surface for the correction of high order aberration and high corneal irregularities, just on the correction map of the IOL manufacturing by the laser. So using our imagination, we can imagine the patient which is laying on the bed with the LASIK station, and the examiner is performing the correction. It can be a little similar to this technology. We not use this type of laser, we use the femtosecond laser, which generate a lot of cost, because let's say the normal femtosecond laser which is used for patient surgery is about 3 watts. The laser which we use for this technology is from 20 up to 40 watts, and it's multiply the price. So the technology is not cheap, but I see when it will be ready, I have the response from laboratories which are really interested in this technology.
Yeah. If I may comment on that, it's very nice what you are saying, Piotr. It may sound science fiction that you have one day custom-made intraocular lenses. I want to share my experience with a study when we were producing and we were evaluating in South America a toric variant of an existing lens. And at this time I was with the manufacturer, and we were receiving clinical data from the site. We were designing the lens because we didn't have inventory in all the opters and in all powers, in all combinations. So we were producing only the toric lenses that were needed for the clinical trial. And our manufacturing was very near the border. So within about a week or so, we could turn over pre-operative visit, custom IOL design, manufacturing, and implantation. So this was but I'm referring to existing technologies, existing IOL manufacturing methods. And in that time, we could prescribe, if we wanted, 1.57 diopters of astigmatism, whatever was necessary, because it was a one-off lens. And speaking about this kind of manufacturing, for conventional lenses at least, the cost is not fundamentally bigger in machining one lens than machining 100 lenses. I mean, the cost per lens is a little bit bigger, but so manufacturing custom lenses are following measurements in one patient is not science fiction. And what Piotr is describing is also giving the flexibility of a freeform optical shape, which is even a step further.
I fully agree, and I think that the freeform, not rotationally symmetric optics is really the future for IOL manufacturing.
But I think that's all agree that the time belongs to customize the IOLs. I think that there is no way. I mean, we have to go that direction. Do you agree?
It is an option, of course, depending on the setting and depending on the market. Some IOLs must be mass-produced, pretty much like spectacle lenses are produced in steps of 0.25 diopters, and nobody is complaining because it's good enough. IOLs can be like this, but if we want to talk about IOLs that will correct very regular corneas, IOL that will provide custom multifocality and so on, then perhaps there is room for customization.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's if we face the ambitious patients that are searching for high supernormal vision, something like this, I think that's it's. I mean, as you said, maybe it's a science fiction issue, but it's said that maybe the human in the future needs, the higher values of vision, visual acuity, and also the quality of vision. So if we think about this or we dream about this, I think that's maybe it's a way, it's a direction. Okay, I have a question that I direct this question to all the speakers. That's I really want to know your idea about the future of intraocular lens. I mean, the bionic IOL or even cyborg. That's nowadays we can hear a lot about this, these items. And because we are in the transitional period, maybe that many things are changing. So I think that maybe the IOL is so. So I really want to know, how do you think, and what do you think about this kind of things? Are these just the science fictions, or they are real science?
Well, if I may comment.
Yes, Renato.
Sorry,
Harry. No.
I think that there will be a time where we will have accommodating lenses, perhaps not very soon. The accommodating lenses is not an optical problem, it is a mechanical problem, is a problem of how to capture the forces and transfer them appropriately to a lens that is responding to those forces. So optics is something that the ophthalmic industry knows very well, and the IOL people know very well, but the mechanics of the ciliary muscle, the zonules, peripheral capsule, the fibrosis is something that nobody knows and nobody has seen. And there are a few ideas of how to couple those forces properly to an accommodating lens. I have the privilege to work on a project that is in this direction. I cannot disclose much about this, but I think that at some point we will have accommodating lenses. But what this is more in the future. I want to emphasize that many of us, actually all of us, the speakers are presbyopic. We live a normal life with our corrections. We take them off to read or to put them on to adapt. And what is still missing from the cataract patient is a uniform and good and wide peripheral field. So we must restore first these parameters, make a good image quality in the periphery, eliminate the strange phenomena associated to dysphotopsias, make the cataract eye clear and transparent as if it were 50 years old or 45, and then make the next step to make it 25. Because current, accommodating lenses are not perfect and will never be exactly like the natural lens. Or the trifocal, this is a compromise. Many of the speakers mentioned that. So I think this is the natural step to make the eye normal, presbyopic, but normal, not pseudophakic with all the problems that the pseudophakic eye has. You know, it's not only the optics in the periphery, it's also the anatomy of the anterior segment. The space once occupied by the crystalline lens is now empty and the vitreous can move. We see cases where this movement of the vitreous body may be associated with some edema or some vitreal detachment and so on. So there are other technologies that we have been evaluating with a open capsule where you can exchange the lens following a few years after the surgery. Great interest for pediatric cases where lens exchange is practically happening all the time. Peripheral optics, there are many things to happen before we reach the level of bionic lenses and accommodating lenses.
Thank you. Any comments? Renato?
Well, I think it's like a dream come true, you know, customizing. We are always customizing. As a clinician, as a refractive surgeon, I want to customize the best care for my patient. So if we can get to the level that I can adjust the implant specifically for that patient. I just had a patient that's a candidate for a phakic IOL toric. And this patient, I tell him, your lens is going to take about 3 weeks for you to get here because we need to get the lens here. And most of the time is due to importation and other things that are not related to the production of the lens. We look at the lens, if the lens is available, it's not a question of producing that lens for that patient, but the patient really likes the idea of having the lens customized for their eye. And I think it's going to be, if you can correct a little bit of the coma, a little bit of the spherical aberration, and eventually give a peripheral vision that is much more quality, that can really help. One point that comes to my mind, and when you talk about peripheral vision, is the elongation of the eye. How would it affect the elongation of the eye in a young patient, for example, for a phakic IOL? Do you have any ideas on thoughts of that?
Yes, if I may comment on that, we know that the current lenses, the current IOLs, especially those with a high power, like 30 or 35 diopters that need to be implanted in small children, they carry huge amounts of astigmatism of 40 or 45 degrees, maybe 15 diopters. It's terrible. The image quality is terrible. And they are on the myopic side. So we are doing this thing, and maybe this is a clear sign for growth, because it's pretty much like the empty field myopia where we accommodate, but it's like the absence of stimulus that will allow the eye to grow. And so we think that the approach of the lens that improves periphery may also have an application in that case, that will allow the whatever feedback mechanism is there to control metropization to take over and prevent those pseudophakic eyes to grow really long.
Piotr, would you like to add something?
Yes, I believe that accommodative IOLs are the future, and we need a lot of work with materials and with mechanics of the lenses, because this is quite critical. Another point that I like to mention is with customization of the lenses is a neuroadaptation of the patients, because with this type of the lenses as accommodative lenses, we don't get too much problems, but with multifocal lenses, refractive or diffractive, we can reach also this problem. And I remember when we were testing different kind of the lenses in some research work to get the results with presbyopia correction, a lot of things was also combined with accommodation and with neuroadaptation. And I think there is a lot of points that before of the surgery need to be analyzed, and also a lot of discussion with patient to find the exact platform, lens platform, because without this, we cannot do nothing.
Mm-hmm. Harry?
Yes, I agree. Is there?
Okay, Renato, do you have anything to say?
Well, I think accommodation IOLs are like the ideal, because it's the closest to what we have as a crystalline lens. So if we ever come to this type of technology that we can really simulate high contrast vision with true accommodation as a young crystalline lens, that would be great. But I think we are doing pretty well on the enhanced depth of focus, on the trifocality IOLs. The big issue is to customize the planning. Sometimes today we don't have a customization of the IOL, but we can customize the planning and trying to find the best fit of the technology that we have available to best help the patient, considering all the patient needs, all the characteristics of the patient, considering corneal astigmatism, corneal high order aberration. One thing that I believe is very important is pupil dynamics. People don't talk about that, like the distance vision and near vision. You have some meiosis and eventually some centroid shift that can be used for some customization, and eventually that's more practical and easier to be done next week, instead of the new technologies of the lens that will be custom made for correcting high order aberrations. I think one of the technologies that we have coming to the future is the femtosecond laser for customizing. You are on mute.
Yeah. Yes. Now I'm back. Yeah. One question to all the speakers. Do you have any idea about the future materials for manufacturing IOLs?
Harry, I can remember. The materials are good. I wouldn't touch anything to the materials. Most of them, there are some good materials that people have learned to avoid the ones that cause the vacuoles. Of course, for those who are involved in making lenses, ideally we should have materials with a little bit higher refractive index, because this would make them thinner. and more precise in their manufacturing. But I think the quality of materials and the optical quality of intraocular lenses by now is not limited by the materials. Materials are doing their part.
So what about the polishing? Technical points.
With the materials, a little information, because when we were testing different materials for manufacturing with the lens with the laser, we found that there are less pure and purer materials. And whereas the materials where the acrylic is purer, there is no like the chemical reaction with the light of the laser. With the materials where there is not such a kind of the pure material, we get the reaction with the light and creation small bubbles. So still we can see the improvement because the manufacturers of the blank materials can improve the quality of material.
Yeah, sorry, I was something happened with my computer and I have to connect again, so I missed a little bit of your conversations. But concerning materials, I'm completely not an expert in materials, so I know very little. But I agree with Haris that I think the materials we have are pretty good. And actually, we published with Jorge Alió, actually. He provided us lenses, explanted lenses, after more than 20 years of implantations in different patients. And we measure different optical properties, transparency, scatter, and it was, at least for me, it was very surprising that the quality of these lenses after more than 20 years implanted in eyes was still extremely good, really good, very, very small degradation. So I think that, I'm sure everything can be improved, but I think that the general materials we have are really, from an optical point of view and also from a biocompatibility point of view, I think they are very good. Of course, there is many possibilities like adjustable lenses that, air oxide, Calhoun before, other ideas, or materials that contain drug delivery issues. So it's many other possibilities, I agree. But for standard lenses, and of course material for, you mentioned before, accommodating lenses. But in general, I will be, when I'm ready for my own surgery, I think I will be pretty happy having any of the current materials in my eye. So I think they are pretty good.
But with a meniscus shape, right? No matter what is.
Of course.
Okay. No, let me check for questions. There's no questions. Okay, any final comments by speakers is welcome.
I enjoy participating. Congratulations, Soheil, again for your great webinar organization. I congratulate all of the speakers for the great talks and really look forward to seeing you all soon in person, eventually in the near future. And yeah. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I really appreciate, and I would like to express my gratitude to all the speakers, to friends, that it was a real very good and excellent webinar, and it was different kind. It was not like other, the webinars that you can see here and there. And I hope that we can meet in person very soon. I think that me and Harry, we met 2 months ago in Greece. Yeah. But I'm hoping that we can meet person with the other friends. I mean, Pablo and Renato and Piotr and Jorge. Yeah. Thank you very much. And before we end up wrap up, I would like to ask the attendees to answer the questions that helps us for the better organization for the future and upcoming events. Thank you very much. Thank you for attending. Have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you very much for organizing. Bye-bye.
Thank you.